Hey everybody, welcome to episode 55 of the Eat for Endurance podcast. If you're new to the show, my name is Claire Shorenstein, and I am a board-certified sports dietitian, runner, and mom of two based in Santa Cruz, California. Today is a race recap episode for you guys, since if you are following me on social media, you may have seen I just ran the Mt Tam 50k, which is an event put on by Inside Trail Racing. I love their races. They always do a fantastic job. And I ran that this past Saturday. That was it November 12th? I don't even know what day it is, right? I'm recording November 15th, Tuesday. So a few days back. And it was a fantastic race at a great time. We got so lucky with beautiful weather. So I'm just going to recap a few things for you guys. It's going to be a shorter episode than usual. And I know these race recaps and solo episodes, not everyone's cup of tea, so feel free to skip this one if you're here for the athlete nutrition profiles and my RD interviews. More of those coming soon. To be perfectly honest, I have some things kind of roughly in the pipeline, but not actually scheduled, so I'm not sure when the next episode will be coming out. But in the meantime, if you're interested, you can hear my race recap today. So, this race, super, super awesome. Highly recommend to anyone who, especially if you're just not familiar with the Marin Headlands. I personally, even though I grew up in Santa Cruz, if you're familiar with my story, I spent a lot of time not living in California. But I had actually never been to Stinson Beach, which is crazy. It's like probably about 2.5 hours from where I am in Santa Cruz. It is absolutely stunning. The drive down there, though, is next level. So, so windy. But just absolutely beautiful views, some amazing trails out there. I've run a couple times, or actually a few times, in different sections of the Marin Headlands, and was really excited to check out some other areas in more of an organized fashion. Part of the reason why I signed up for this race, and it did not disappoint. So if you are local to this area or traveling, highly recommend either just checking out, Mt Tam State Park, Muir Woods, and all of that on your own, or if you have the opportunity to enter more of an organized race, like the one I did, it is worth it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of doing this off the cuff today, but why don't I just go through a little bit of the, what the race was like. I can talk about my nutrition, maybe use myself as a bit of a case study, and see what else kind of comes out of this. I'll try to keep it short and sweet and not ramble too much. But yeah, so yeah, this race was this past Saturday, and it's not a huge race. Inside Trail, they usually so that was the company that put on the Rodeo Valley one that I did back in August, and they also put on all sorts of events in the Bay Area. So again, great event organizer. Highly recommend them. They always do a fantastic job. This race was about 330 people in total that actually finished, and they had a 10K, 10K, half marathon, 30K, and 50K. Unlike some of the previous events, the 50K was actually the biggest, second biggest. So I think it was 104 people who finished the 50K and 134 ran the half. So half was the biggest, then the 50K, then the 30K, 90 ran that, and 83 ran the 10K. So, a fairly small event. These trail races around here are typically not massive by any means, but it was a sizable event, and just a beautiful, perfect day. It was very cold, but clear and gorgeous. We got some really wonderful views, and yeah, really had a great time. So my prep for this race, well, I won't lie, it was a subpar, for sure. I, in terms of just like fighting various illnesses that I caught from my kids, or I had rolled my ankle at one point, so I had to take some time off. We traveled to New York, so I wasn't exactly hitting the trails. I was doing a lot of walking and everything, and got a short-ish long run in. But yeah, training for this one wasn't quite amazing, especially given this 50K had almost 7,000 feet of climbing. The elevation profile, for me at least, and what I'm used to doing, it was pretty difficult. And I did some training, most of my training is always in Nicene Marks. It's like kind of our local state park that has a lot of great trails. And I did some repeats of like our big climb. I did that a couple times. That was kind of like my main training, is just trying to get in as much climbing as I could. But I think the most that I did, was maybe 3,000 feet. And then I did the Solomon Half Marathon back in September, which was an absolutely fantastic event. So great. It was the inaugural, women's half marathon that Solomon put on. and that was in Rodeo Valley. We got to go back there. And that half marathon was actually an amazing training event for me because I pushed really hard. It was a ton of climbing, and just like a really hard training session. So I think between that and this one long run I did where I did like 4 intervals of this huge long climb, got me at least to prep like the minimum amount to get through this event. So it was subpar, but I was able to kind of get through the race without any major issues. Definitely could have done a better job. Did not do strength training. Again, I'm really terrible about that, and I've always vowed to be better. But all in all, I did what I could. I tend to be a very low mileage runner, and I don't think I got above like 36 miles in a week. But yeah, so not the best prep, but going into it, I knew I could finish it. I just knew I wouldn't be my best self or, as competitive as I wanted to be. But then again, I don't do these races to, finish in any particular time. I really just do it to experience the trails and just have a fun day out and be in nature and maybe meet some fun people along the way. And I definitely ticked all of those boxes. Like, definitely was great. And then, just to push myself and see what I can do on the day given where I'm at. So I definitely did that. And, my two main goals, honestly, for the day was do not get lost and do not fall. So, and obviously have fun, but just in terms of like not hurting myself and all of that, since in Rodeo Valley 50k in August, I took a pretty bad fall. So I am happy to report that I did not get lost and I did not fall. So, goals achieved. In terms of nutrition, actually, no, let me back up for a minute. Just a few stats on this race. The winner was this guy who finished in 3 hours and 58 minutes. So I finished in 6 hours and 54 minutes. I'm not a particularly fast runner, so, fine. But I can't even, I can't wrap my head around running the course that we ran in 3 hours and 58 minutes. This course was really hard. And again, almost 7,000 feet of climbing, pretty technical in sections. So yeah, that was just so impressive. The next guy who finished was 4 hours and 18 minutes. And the third place finisher and first female was actually the first one in my age group, the 40 to 49 group. She ran a 4:58, which again is just like mind blowing. Just so amazing. Second in my age group was 6 hours and 3 minutes. And again, I came in at 6:54. So the two women ahead of me were pretty fast. But I was pretty stoked with my time, especially given the subpar training that went into it. I was 46 overall out of 104. I was 10th female out of 30 and third in my age group. So I got that age group award, which is, hey, it's always fun. I got another coaster. Another thing that was nuts was I remember running this event and I saw this boy fly past me, and there were like these loops in the course, and he comes flying past me. I'm like, oh my God, how young is that guy? So I looked at the results just now. 13-year-old boy who finished 6th overall in 5 hours and 15 minutes. I mean, that's just incredible. Wow. 13 years old. Okay. So those are just a few stats I'm throwing out. I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but so this course, again, it begins at Stinson Beach. It climbs up part of the famous Dipsea Trail. I don't know if any of you listeners have done the Dipsea before. I've heard a lot about it, but have not myself done it. I can't say that I actually want to do it after running this, to be perfectly honest. Those stairs, man, those were a little treacherous. I can't imagine doing that and having people like run past you and up and down and all over. So I don't know. It was great. It was beautiful, but I don't think I particularly want to do the Dipsea. But yeah, so it goes along part of the Dipsea Trail. It goes along some beautiful forested sections that actually really reminded me of Nicene Marks. I think some of it was definitely in the Muir Woods. I'm not sure which trails were what, but we went through the Muir Woods, which was just absolutely gorgeous. We went up Cardiac Hill many times. There was an aid station there that we hit like 3 or 4 times, and then down to Muir Beach, and again along some other trails. I can't remember what the names were, but it was all really beautiful. I really would love the opportunity to go back there again. It's just kind of hard with the kids to get up there to do any kind of fun runs or anything like that. Okay, so nutrition. The day before, or I guess days before. So typically, as some of you may know, we're really recommending about 48 to 72 hours prior to race day is when we're increasing carb intake. And the guidelines, it's pretty high. It's 10 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight. So for me, that equals about 575 grams of carbs. To be honest, I'm not sure I hit that. I'm not always, I try my best to hit my own nutrition goals, of course, and I practice as much as I can. I'm not perfect by any means, and I still am working on my own nutrition. So, I really tried hard, and especially the day before, to get the carbs in. My stomach was feeling really off for some reason. I've had issues the last 2 runs. I don't know what's going on. I'm still trying to figure it out for myself. I have in recent races tried to really work on getting more carbs in and just more energy in total the days leading up to the race. Historically, like back when I didn't know what on earth I was doing, like before being a dietitian, I was really terrible at all my nutrition stuff and really was underfueling. Not intentionally, but I just didn't really know how much I needed. And now that I do know how much, I'm trying to get more in. And for some reason, my stomach was like, yeah, nope, not having it. So I did do quite a bit of pasta, I did bagels. It was fine, but just felt off, and my bowel habits were off. And so I went into, race morning. Just, we had to wake up at 4 a.m, and the race started at 7:30, and I was feeling horrible, like really horrible. I was pretty convinced I was going to have an awful day because my stomach was super unhappy. And it was in that last road, like the really, really, really windy drive leading down to Stinson Beach. It's like 30 minutes of intense switchbacks and I get motion sick. So that was like next level. I was convinced. I'm like, forget it. I'm going to like throw up or something. Like, this is just really bad. And then somehow, I don't know if I willed it away or my body just like chilled out. I don't know what happened, but I managed to be okay. Like, as soon as I started running, everything went away. I was totally fine. It was the most bizarre thing. So I'm not sure what was going on there. In terms of nutrition in the morning, I opted for bagel with, what did I do? I think be a bagel with peanut butter and jelly. I did banana. I had Tailwind. I was preloading with Tailwind the day before and the morning of. Sometimes I do oatmeal in the morning of. Sometimes I do kind of toast with peanut butter and banana and honey or something like that. But I had been practicing with bagels. I was fortunate enough to have a big bag of bagels in the freezer from a recent trip, so I was going for that. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. So that's like kind of the missing puzzle piece of like I'm still working on my pre-race nutrition. Morning of typically is really solid for me, but for whatever reason, this just was off. So that's one thing that was off. But my during race nutrition was so dialed in this time. I finally got it and was really stoked about it because I was trying some new strategies from my last race, where my stomach was really not happy. And I tend to have a more sensitive stomach, so I have to be really careful, but I've kind of trained my gut to tolerate various things. And this time I was able to get like consistently 75 to 80 grams of carbs per hour, which is fantastic for me. So, and I think just impressive generally, because the guideline for anything over 2.5 to 3 hours is 60 to 90 grams. But a lot of endurance athletes like don't even hit 60. And if you listen to my last podcast episode with Keely and Kelly, we talk about this, how a lot of ultra runners and other endurance athletes just aren't hitting that, minimum 60 gram per hour guideline. So I was super stoked to be really, really like clockwork getting it in and to be tolerating it and feeling really good. So just to let you know what I did, again, this is just an example, and by no means does it mean that this is going to work for you. But in case anyone's curious, I was trying out some of the Precision products. I did an episode a little while back with Andy Blow of Precision Hydration. And I love their gels. I'm in love with their gels. They're so great. They're kind of like Morton a little bit. I've had some clients say that, who liked Morton, that they like these or like them better, or at least as much as the Morton ones. They're a little similar in that they're not flavored. They're different consistency, but I've had a lot of success with that, and they're 30 grams of carbs each. So it's like really easy to get it in. And I've been mixing that, like kind of alternating with some Spring Energy products. So for this particular race, I basically mapped out, I knew I would be running for like roughly 7-ish hours, which is pretty much what I did. I thought somewhere between 6.5 to 7.5 was my guess, because last race I did just under 6.5, and I knew this one was both longer and had 1,000 feet more of elevation. So I kind of mapped out every hour, what would equal at least 75 grams of carbs. So I kind of clumped my gels into little piles of, okay, I'm going to do one Precision Hydration gel, which is 30 grams, and one, say, Spring Energy Awesome Sauce, which is 45 grams. So boom, that's 75 grams, super easy. And then another hour could be, say, okay, I'm going to do a Precision Hydration gel, 30 grams. I'm going to do a Spring Energy Cannonberry that's like, I think it's like 17-ish grams. And then half of this, it's that Nature's Bakery fig bar things that has 2 little bars in it. So one of those bars, I think it's like just under 20 grams. So I would like clump those 3 things together. And usually when I took the awesome sauce, which is 45 grams, I would take it in 2 halves. So I was basically fueling like throughout the entire race every 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes, which was really easy to track, I would make sure that I was tanking something in. Whether again it was the, half of an awesome sauce or one of the Canterberries or one of the precision gels or a bar or potato with salt or something else, so I was reaching a little bit for the aid station food, but I was really more I like to be very self-reliant in these races, except for water, of course, and then whatever looks appealing to me off of aid station tables. So I think this time I grabbed a potato with salt. I actually had pretzels with me, the flat ones. I think it's like Snack Factory. They're crazy salty. I put them in a little Ziploc, so I would munch on those here and there. And I took a salt pill from an aid station and some water, and otherwise I just brought all of my own stuff, which was actually kind of nice just to kind of be self-sufficient. I know it means that you're carrying more stuff, and some people really don't like to carry as much, but I just like having what I practice with and not needing to rely on the aid station having that particular flavor of gel, or like I take sometimes those goo waffles, and I know the aid stations had those, but they only had the flavors I didn't like, so I'm really glad I wasn't relying on that being there, for instance. So yeah, so that's what I was doing for calories / carbs. And normally I'm doing Tailwind in my bottles, but this time I decided to give Precision Hydration's drinks a try. I've been using them a little bit in training. I don't love the taste, but I kind of gotten to a point where I don't mind it now. Before I didn't like it. Now I don't mind it. And especially when I'm running, I find that it's very light and it's really not a big deal to drink. Doesn't taste like wonderful, but I don't mind it. And I'm using the Tailwind more, since Tailwind, just for anyone not familiar, has 50 grams of carbs for 2 scoops in a bottle. And I think it's roughly, is it like 600 milligrams of sodium or something like that? And Precision has like various, again, if you go back and listen to the episode, it was a few episodes ago, they have different strengths, I guess you could call it, in terms of sodium amounts in their drink mixes. And so they have like 500, 1,000, and 1,500. Although, just an FYI, I find this really confusing, and I'm not sure why they market it this way. But if their packet, for instance, I'm using the 1,000 drink mix, it's 1,000 milligrams. But if you take the packet and you pour it into the 16 ounces, it's actually 500 milligrams of sodium. It's not 1,000, which is highly confusing. And I've had some clients be like, wait, is it 1,000 or is it 500? I'm like, no. So the way that you think about sodium is milligrams per liter. So it makes sense. It makes sense when you think about it. Okay, great. What they're saying is if you were to have a liter of this solution and you put 2 packets to get a liter, because it's 1 packet per 16 ounces, then that would equate to 1,000 milligrams. This is actually something I meant to ask Andy at some point, so I haven't really gotten around to that. But I find that a little confusing, the way they do that, because the way they label it seems like there should be 1,000 milligrams in the packet, but there is not. So anyways, I was doing those packets instead. They do provide some carbohydrate and some calories, but fairly low amounts. So it wasn't really it was adding a bit to my totals, but not that much. And that was really my main experiment, to see, do I prefer to get more calories and carbs from food and gels or solid things versus drinks? Or do I like having, a sizable amount of stuff come from the drinks? So that was kind of the experiment. And then I moved the Tailwind to more of my like kind of carb loading phase of things, like preloading. So I moved it to like the day before I had a couple servings, and then the morning of I had a big bottle of Tailwind to kind of up my carbohydrate. And I kind of liked this approach. It's not something I'll do all the time, but it seemed to work. I will say it was a really cold day, so I found that I didn't need as many electrolytes, or I wasn't sweating as much, and I just feel like I didn't need it. And I, for whatever reason, was really just craving plain water. So again, that's something I'm still tweaking for myself. I did the sweat sodium test. I know how much I lose per liter. I know I'm a salty sweater, but for whatever reason, I just wasn't craving the salt as much. And I felt really good just having a combination of the precision drinks and plain water. Like I think I took like 4 liters of plain water in this, and I probably had, I don't know how many packets of the precision, definitely less than I definitely didn't take all of the electrolyte drink I'd brought with me, which wasn't ideal, but I seemed to feel good and didn't feel any ill effects of it. And I did decide to take a salt pill because I was just kind of sick of drinking things. So that's another thing that I'm continuing to tweak. And I think the lesson here too is, some people really have things they like and they have the nutrition kind of dialed in and everything. But, it's always fun just to kind of tinker around and figure out other strategies and see if you like them or if you want to go back to what you were doing. Or maybe there's like different distances or race types or, where maybe you're using this type of product and another time using a different product. So I always love kind of playing around with my nutrition and trying new products and seeing what works and testing things. And sometimes they work and sometimes it's a total fail. So, certainly the days before my race, I was trying some different stuff and I had practiced, during training, before training runs and stuff. But yeah, something was totally off this time around for the pre. But at least the during nutrition really, really panned out well, based on like what I tried in training. So I was really stoked about that. And just kind of going back to some guidelines here, that I forgot to mention. One that you may have heard, it's, for pre-event, like the morning of, you do 1 to 4 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight 1 to 4 hours before an event. So for my body weight, that was roughly for like 3-ish hours before, 150, 160 grams of carbohydrate. And, that's 3-ish hours before. So it's not that you have to sit down and eat all of that at once. It's, you can kind of space it out in that time leading up to the 3 hours. So as I mentioned, I was doing, I had some mini bagels. So I had like, all I could stomach was like 1.5 of them. I got to a point where I was really struggling to eat. I had coffee with milk. I had a banana. I had the jelly on there. I had, the Tailwind, which really was an easy way to get the carbs in. I had a gel. I think I got pretty close to that amount. So I think I was a bit more successful with that than I was with hitting kind of my carb goals for the day before. But yeah, so that's kind of my little race report there. In terms of the race itself, I actually was lucky enough. I think it was like 3 miles in. I buddied up with this guy named Mike from Fremont, California, who was a really cool guy. He has 2 girls like I do. And we were chatting for, gosh, like at least 15 miles, I think, which was really nice because it forced me first to pace myself and, chill out and not go too hard or anything like that. And it just really helped the miles tick by. The course was just so beautiful. I was trying my best just to take it all in and really enjoy the experience, which really wasn't that hard. Again, it was pretty spectacular trails, and I kind of like to be surprised. I don't like to look too much into what's going on in advance. Like I did briefly, of course, glance at the course just to get a sense of what we were doing, and I glanced at the elevation profile enough to know that it was a ton of climbing. But other than that, I kind of like to be surprised. So I was surprised. I didn't realize it was going to be so covered and forested for such huge chunks of the race. It was really, really nice. And yeah, it was really fun to share those miles with this guy, Mike, who was very nice. We parted ways around, I think it was around like mile 18-ish or so. I was feeling pretty strong, wanted to kind of take it up a notch. Soon after that, I was maybe mile 21. I ran into Eric, my husband, who was running the 30K. And our courses kind of overlap in one section. He was chilling out and just kind of hiking with his new poles he had just gotten for the race. And so we got to see each other, and that was a nice little boost. The other thing that I never, ever had done before, I never run with music, like ever in races. I do sometimes in training. But I decided this time around, just because last 50K, I was by myself. It was a much smaller race, and I was by myself forever. And I was like not in a great headspace after I fell, and my stomach was bothering me. And I was like, oh, this is like the one time I could use some music to lift my spirits. Normally I like to be just with my thoughts and see the trails and really just kind of go through that. But this time I brought my AirPods with me because I had my phone regardless to take pictures and whatnot. And I thought, you know what? It's like no space. I'm just going to throw my AirPods in my bag, my vest, and see if I want it at any point. And I ended up, when was it? I want to say it was like mile 24. The race was about 32 miles. Mile 24, we do another loop of this like forest, this gorgeous forested section, and it's all downhill after this huge climb. And I was like flying downhill as it was. And then I decided, so, I'm going to put in my music. And it was like a shot of adrenaline. Oh my God. It was amazing. And then of course, you know how you get like really lucky when a great song comes on. I hadn't really curated any playlists. I just had like my general long running playlist or whatever, which has a bunch of songs I like now don't want to listen to anymore because I'm so sick of them, and a few songs that are fun. But the song that happened to come on was the first song on the Greatest Showman soundtrack, which I actually haven't seen the movie, and I hadn't really heard the soundtrack very much. But recently I heard some songs, and I think I had taken a Peloton ride with Greatest Showman, and there's some amazing songs on that soundtrack. And it was the first one, and it got me so amped up. It was amazing. So just running through redwoods downhill on these crazy single track trails, listening to music. And I only put my headphones in when I knew I was running alone. Because of course, with trail, that's really tricky when it's a lot of single track. Is like, you just need to be able to hear things around you, and if someone's coming up behind you and wants to pass and all that. So after that one song, there were some people around, and I started to feel a little bit uncomfortable having the music in. So I ended up kind of pausing it or taking it out or whatever. And then I kind of just got over it. But there were a couple other moments kind of later on where I did put them in again and like listen to like one or two songs that were really pumping me up. But again, only when the trails were wider and I felt safe doing so, because it kind of just didn't feel safe, to be honest. I know a lot of people listen to music, but not really my thing for the most part when it comes to trail races. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this race. Again, Inside Trail is a great race organization. I really love their events. I have no idea what's next, to be perfectly honest. I was thinking about Lake Sonoma. Well, for a very brief moment, I was thinking about Lake Sonoma 50. But then I was like, you know what? After running this event, I think that a 50K is, especially like a hard 50K like the one we ran, I think that's all I can manage with the kids right now. Like I struggle to get the training in, and this felt like a safe, like challenging, but still like safe distance where I'm not gonna like break myself. It was hard enough just like making sure I didn't face plant, because there were I really like caught my toe a few times and almost really fell hard. It was a pretty challenging course, I'm not gonna lie. So I feel like the 50K right now is like the max I can go. So the 50 miler, that went out the window, but Lake Sonoma does have a marathon that I'm eyeing. I'm still not sure about it. I'm kind of like, a part of me loves having these events on the calendar just to keep myself motivated. And of course, they're just more opportunities to do fun things and meet fun people and experience the trails out here, take advantage of being in California. Another part of me is like, do I feel like a little burnt out on this right now? I just did 250Ks not that far apart. Or do I want to like kind of keep capitalizing on the fitness I have? I don't know. To be honest, I'm really not sure. I will say that I'm kind of craving some unstructured training. I mean, not like my training's that structured. I'm acting like I'm like out there doing like track workouts. I'm like really not. But I don't know. I think it's a nice time of the year as we come up on Thanksgiving next week to, get back into like strength workouts, to do more cross training, to just kind of do some fun runs, no pressure on time or distance. I honestly think just doing that the rest of the year, like maintaining some level of fitness, but just having fun with it, maybe trying some new things. That's always a really nice thing to do. It's something I also recommend to clients in terms of like avoiding burnout and, physical and mental, right? So I think I'm going to try to apply that to myself. As for spring goals, really up in the air. We'll see. I definitely want to do I would love to do at least like something. I want something in the calendar, whether it's going to be a half marathon or a marathon or a 50K again. I'm not sure. What I'd really love to do, if I'm honest, is like a really big adventure. Grand Canyon rim to rim is still, or rim to rim to rim is still like on my bucket list. All of those like awesome things, like, I mean, these aren't, I think they're more like fall. I'm actually not sure when they happen, but like the Bryce Canyon and Zion and all of those races like that happen there, that would totally are, those are on my list. There are just so many parts of the country I haven't seen, and would love to explore. through running, but again, with kids, it's really hard. So for now, I think we're just going to stick to these local-ish races where we can get up crazy early and, we put our kids to bed at my parents' house the night before. We're really lucky that my parents will cover. And then we get up crazy early and drive within, 1.5 to 2.5 hours morning of and hit up the race and come home that night. And this particular time we came home to our screaming, melting down children. So that was really fun when I could barely walk, but, we got them to bed and it was fine. So I think that for now is kind of like our little race formula, in terms of 1, maybe 2 nights at Grandma and Grandpa's and get up early, drive somewhere, do our race, come home. And for now, that's good. It's kind of, fulfilling that or ticking that box of let's do some adventures, but nothing too crazy. And then once the kids are older or whatever other opportunities present, 100% want to do some bigger adventures. So yeah, that's where things are at right now. And just wishing you all a really, really happy Thanksgiving. And again, I'm not really sure what's next with the podcast. I've been sending out some emails trying to get really awesome guests for you all and people I'd love to chat with. It's hard to get people to respond sometimes, especially when, it's a smaller show and they don't know who you are or I don't have their contact emails. So, as always, if you guys have, guest or topic requests or you happen to know someone personally you want me to connect with, that's always welcome. You can email me, eatforendurance@gmail.com. And other than that, thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. If you haven't left a rating or review on iTunes, I always love to hear from you guys. And yeah, again, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, and see you all soon.